what's up, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy, coming at you live again. Well, I'm not live, but I'm coming at you with another podcast episode. This one's fun. I bring my brother on. We talk about the bridge designs in the U.S. We look at the infrastructure report card on our bridges and see how we're doing. We talk about funding. We talk about the issues we have, how bridge inspections are done, and everything related to bridges. So it's kind of a fun episode to look into. It also is a good reminder that civil engineering is kind of a very secure area for engineers to be in terms of employment, because there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. So there's just a lot that we cover in this. We talk about the top 5 and the bottom 5 states in terms of your bridges and how well they're doing, the deficiencies that they have or don't have. And so there's just that's just kind of the nature of it. So hopefully, you care about bridges. Hopefully you care what you drive on, and hopefully we can improve some things in the future. So anyway, it's a fun episode. It's coming up, and it's going to be with my brother Mark. See you in a bit. All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Isaac here with my brother Mark. What's up, bud?
Hey, how's it going?
We are back at it together. We on this podcast episode, it's going to be a good one. And I wanted to bring up one of the infrastructure report cards that I thought we could discuss together, because I think it's always fun to kind of go over these, kind of see where we're at, and then see when they redo it if there's been any improvement. Which I kind of don't think it's going to happen. So today we're going to talk about bridges. And if you ever go check out the infrastructure report card for bridges, they actually give it a C+ rating, which is actually better than most that I've seen. Most of them are like a D score.
I think it actually improved. They do this every 4 years, as you know, Isaac, and it actually improved from the last report card. So it seems like we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's true. Just right off the report, they say 9.1% of bridges rated structurally deficient. So about 10%, I guess, if we're going to go that way. As part of their summary, though, they've listed that in the U.S., we've actually got 614,387 bridges, almost 4 in 10 of which are 50 years or older.
Right. And that's significant because that's pretty much the lifespan of a bridge is about 50 years is what they design.
Yeah, and I'm in the transmission world, and that's about the same for that too. And I know we've got stuff that's out there for 100 years, which is not good.
Yeah, it gets old.
Actually, earlier I did in an earlier podcast episode, I did an infrastructure report card on the energy system, and it wasn't good. So this one looks to be better. Going on, they've got about 5,600 or 9.1% of the nation's bridges were structurally deficient in 2016. And on average, there were 188 million trips across a structurally deficient bridge each day.
That's a lot of trips. That's a lot of trips across the bridge.
You want to be driving on those bridges?
Well, luckily, I happen to live in a state where the infrastructure is in fairly good shape, and we'll talk about which states are the worst. But in my hometowns, I live in areas where the infrastructure is relatively new, so I feel relatively safe. I think.
Oh, that's good. What about people that don't? They're like, we got to improve stuff.
Yeah, but that's not the case everywhere. And so there's obviously need for improvement. Local DOTs or Department of Transportation they're looking for federal funding, of course, to help supplement their own local state funding to help improve the situation. But funding's kind of a big issue, which is another thing that we'll talk about here. But
yeah, so it sounds like the increase in deficient bridges is increasing as this age keeps getting older. So what they've stated is that the most recent estimate puts the nation's backlog of bridges in basically the cost to be about $123 billion to fix that problem.
Yeah, and that's significant. That's a lot of money.
That is a whole lot of money. So let's talk about the condition and capacity. So it looks like generally, if you were to see a graph that they produced starting in basically 2007, it just looks like it's structurally deficient bridges starting in 2007. If you look at it by area or by number, it started pretty high as a percentage, and it has come down over the years, which is, I think, why you're getting a C plus on your score.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's a little more aware about it, especially local municipalities, local governments are becoming more and more aware of the situation, and so they're allocating resources, help it get fixed.
That's very good. If you were to look at America's bridges by age, it looks like about 40% of the bridges are 50 plus years old, and the rest kind of just chop up into about 15 percentage points if you break it up each 10 years. And so, brand new bridges is about 8%. And if you go to 10 to 19 years, about 12%, and then on from there. So it just looks like we got a lot of old bridges. And I'd be curious when they actually release this in 2021, whenever that's going to come about, to see if there's been any improvement in that age group.
I would expect that trend to continue to improve. So we're at 9.1% right now overall that are deficient. In the last report card, we were at 12.3. So if we improved, by 3% every year, if we kept that trend going, I mean, we're going in the right direction. We got to keep that going.
And I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but I think of all the report cards that they produce, I would imagine that most people and the public care a lot about the bridges they're driving on.
Yeah,
kind of a big deal.
Do you remember the I-35 bridge in Minneapolis, Twin Cities, right? Minnesota, the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, that I-35 bridge that collapsed. It was a steel bridge. And I'm roughly remembering the details, but that was an older bridge. It was a steel bridge, and it had some problems with some of the connections, and which led to a lot of the reasons why it failed. But that one was a big deal, and I can't remember what year that happened. Isaac, maybe you recall, but
I don't.
It's been within the last 10 years. I can't recall exactly what date that was, but that was a big one that happened that I think got a lot of people aware of bridge structural deficiencies, and making sure that we allocate some of our public resources to fixing bridges and making sure they're safe.
I think that was the 35W bridge in Minneapolis.
Yes.
It was in 2007.
Okay. So a little more than 10 years ago. Shows you how.
Yeah, you're out of it.
How well I can keep track of time. I just remember that one a little bit because I had just driven over that bridge probably, I don't know, a month before it fell down. I remember. So it was something that hit me too when it happened. But
so, Mark, let's talk about, I guess, regular inspections, because I know these are supposed to be regularly inspected.
Mm-hmm.
What are they determining as what's passing and what's failing on a bridge?
So bridges are kind of divided up into sections. And so there's the main support structure. That's usually probably the piers and the abutments that are the underlying structure of the bridge. And then on top of that, what they call the superstructure is probably the deck and sometimes the plate girders or the precast girders that are on top of the piers. And so when they do these inspections, they're supposed to crawl underneath and actually inspect the joints, Bridges have to have room for expansion. So there's always expansion joints where corrosion and different things can start corroding bridges that are sources for problems on bridges, and they have to investigate all of the structure underneath. Sometimes if just the superstructure is in question, they can use hydroblasting and different methods to remove concrete and the paving off of a bridge and just maybe rehabilitate the superstructure, just the deck. Okay. And then they're not doing a full replacement. And those assessments happen all the time. The expensive ones are when the underlying structure, the bents, the piers, the supporting structure underneath might be bad, and it requires a full replacement. Then it gets expensive. But the Federal Highway Administration and most DOTs require that every bridge is numbered and cataloged, and they have a yearly inspection program that they all go through, and then they prioritize which bridges need the most attention, and then those get the ones that do need a lot of attention get obviously put on top of the list as far as allocating funds, and they're supposed to systematically get those repairs done as they do those inspections. But
that's interesting. I know also, a big issue with bridges is that they don't actually serve current traffic demands. A lot of places where you're driving on a bridge and then it narrows down to maybe a 2-laner or something like that. And so I wondered are we considering those like obsolete bridge, like we need to update those? I know there's probably a lot of environmental concerns with those. In their report, they said bridges that do not serve current traffic demands or meet current standards, whether due to too few lanes or too narrow lanes or shoulders, are considered functionally obsolete. Yeah. So I imagine that is thrown into this as well.
Yeah, those kind of things are assessed too with these inspections, and there's lots of solutions to that. Sometimes those types of bridges, you can just build another bridge alongside an existing one if you've got enough room. And sometimes you get into right-of-way issues because maybe there's somebody's neighborhood right up against the bridge embankment or something, and then they have to come in and to widen a bridge. Maybe you have property line issues, and there's ways to deal with that with MSE walls and different things like that to kind of get that embankment within property lines and those kind of things.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. They've listed that 1 in 8 bridges in the U.S. were functionally obsolete in 2016.
Yeah,
which is not good. So
I mean, modern day engineering and construction methods really give bridge builders a lot of options to work around some of those issues. But yeah, that's. It can be a problem, but usually if you just need to add lanes, I mean, you can add an entirely different, like a tandem structure that's right next to an existing one if you have to,
That makes sense.
So
we've identified the issues. We know we've got issues in the U.S. with bridges. It does, overall, I think this is a better grade than most infrastructure report cards in general. So that's a highlight. But this is expensive stuff. So a big part of their reports is talking about funding and the future need of these. And so a lot of this depends on federal dollars. And they've stated that the federal government estimates that there's about $17.5 billion was spent on bridge capital projects in 2012. I imagine that's a lot higher now that we're heading into 2021. But you've got a lot of dollars that come from federal money. I imagine this all plays a role into people who you're voting for or the issues that they care about. But I know that most politicians care about creating jobs for people and funding these kind of projects. What do you think about all this funding stuff? And
well, What's
voting.
interesting to me is that a lot of the funding for highway improvement comes from gasoline tax, right? What is,
every time you go fill up the pump, huh?
yeah, well, what's the big push now is for environmentally, we'll say conscious transportation, right? So people are looking into electric cars, for sure, hybrids. We're making up a lot of the vehicular traffic on highways. And, if you got an electric car, when are you ever filling up your pump or filling up the car with gas? You're just not, right? So
Yeah.
there's a little less revenue for fuel tax, and those cars are still using the same bridges and roads that the rest of us are using, that maybe don't have electric cars.
Do you foresee a time that they tax the electric use?
Well,
I work for a utility, and I feel like we're becoming the gas company.
well,
there's
a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. The more electric cars we get, the more that's going to be the case. And so how do we handle that? They're using the same infrastructure as everybody else, and you can't just target gasoline for generating that revenue. So what do you do?
Yeah, I imagine we're creating charging stations along major freeways already, and I imagine at one point that will be something that they will tax. So,
oh yeah, I think they'll have to eventually.
Yeah, they'll roll it over into both gas and electric.
Yeah,
fuel types.
So that is an interesting issue that's there.
Just a little bit more on this. It states that the past decade's been marked with uncertainty for federal surface transportation programs. So, a lot of these programs come and go that they come up with, and they usually give them interesting acronyms like Fixing America's Surface Transportation or the FAST Act.
Yeah, they just came up with that, so they could call it FAST.
I'm sure they'll come up with more acronyms.
Yeah.
So anyway, that kind of stuff is going to be around for a long time. Let's talk about the structurally deficient bridges, the top and the 5 bottom states. So who's in our top 5 for the best?
So the top 5 states that are these guys are taking care of their bridges and doing fairly well with their rehab and their new bridge construction. There's DC, District of Columbia. I guess that's technically not a state though, is it? Nevada, Delaware, Hawaii, Utah. Hey, Utah.
Hey, we're on there.
Yeah, Nevada, Texas, Florida, Arizona. Those are the ones that are on top, and their percentages, they're in the, like Utah, for instance, is in the 3.1% of the bridges are deficient. That's it. Arizona's 2.6, Florida's 2.1, Texas 1.7, and Nevada, 1.6, just as an example. But they're really low. They're keeping on top of it.
Yeah. So what makes them the better states, do you think? Is it funding? Is it that they actually care about it? What do you think?
I think it's a combination. I think they care about it, but it's also some of these states are a little more rural type states, I would say. So the ones that are a little more densely populated might have a little more, of an issue with doing bridge rehab that makes it a little more difficult. Some of the issues like we talked about with, right-of-way issues and property lines. And, when you're in a dense urban environment, it's tough to
expand.
To get things built. But I don't think that's entirely true, as we'll talk about the bottom 5 here, because some of those are fairly rural type states. And so that line of thinking wouldn't apply. But the other thing is just like we were talking, it's just, are the bridges a big priority or not,
Yeah. So what are our bottom 5?
So our bottom 5, we're looking at Iowa, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Missouri, Nebraska. Rhode Island is way off the charts. We'll talk about their percentage, but we got Iowa, Pennsylvania, I already mentioned, South Dakota, and then West Virginia. And some of these states, like Rhode Island's almost 25% of their bridges are are bad.
Wow. That's
Iowa's
not
at 21%. Pennsylvania's at 20%. South Dakota's there at 20%. It's just, yeah. That's
some
like
work to be done.
1 in 5 of their bridges are structurally deficient. That's not good.
So, as part of this, they look at innovation technologies to try to help improve the lifespan of these bridges, to keep them going even longer. They talk about some sensors that are being embedded into both the new and existing bridges to provide feedback on structural conditions that are going on there. There's also the use of a new material like ultra high performance concrete. Have you used that before, Mark? UHPC?
What UDOT is kind of experimenting in. They've done a lot of bridge decks with these polyester overlays. So it's kind of once they get a bridge deck in place, they'll come back and put in these. It's almost like if you've seen somebody do maybe an epoxy flooring in their garage or something akin to that, but it's
like a polymer.
But it's a polyester. Yeah, they call it a polyester overlay, and they've been doing a lot of that over their decks, and there's a lot of good scholarship and research behind that being able to stretch out the life of the bridge. And we throw a lot of de-icing salts down in Utah.
Yes.
So the corrosion is a huge problem. As you know, if de-icing salts get down in the cracks in concrete, it gets down into the rebar rusts, it expands, and then
not good.
Not good. And so there's a lot of good research that this is going to help extend the life of the bridges, but it's fairly new, and you really don't know until the bridge has been in service for 10, 15 years, how it's working. But that's one thing that UDOT's doing.
One of the things I also saw here in Utah when I was in school, and it was relatively new, is building the bridges. I don't know. I forget. I think it's called Modular, but they build them basically off-site, and what they can do is roll the bridge in on a machine. It can't work for every bridge, but on certain overpasses on freeways, they were building the bridge, and then you can like roll it in place. Yeah,
the company I worked for was very innovative in that effort. We did in 2008 what was called the I-15 core project, which was an expansion down in Utah County of our I-15 corridor. And we did a lot of bridges. They call it ABC construction, accelerated bridge construction. So as you were saying, they construct the bridge. It's actually it's the superstructure of the bridge. They construct off-site, and then they wheel it in with these little SPMTs, they call them, which are these little hydraulic dollies, for lack of a better word, that kind of just wheel the bridge into place, and they set it down on the abutments. And
I think they're pretty slick.
It's really cool construction. And you're right. It takes the right type of bridge. Obviously, you couldn't do a big flyover like that, right? A big flyover bridge. There's no way to do it that way. But if you've just got a little typical bridge and it's over, a 6-lane highway, it's a viable option if you've got some real estate alongside that you can, pre-build the bridge and slide it in. It's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was some really cool innovation. Just listing some of the things they've also listed as well. They're listing about using composites, high performance steels, better resilience, and all those things can add a longer life to your bridge. So those are the things we've just mentioned. Innovation. Anything else on innovation, Mark? You seeing anything else in the industry?
That ABC accelerated bridge construction, I would say, is probably the most current construction technique innovation that we've had. There's other things that are really cool. If you're building over rivers and there's double cantilever type construction, and there's really cool things that you can get into. But as far as like cost saving and time saving and reducing the impact to the traveling public, I think that ABC bridge construction is probably the coolest innovation that's come our way as of late, meaning within the last 10, 15 years. But
yeah, I think that's pretty new.
Yeah.
At least it was when I was in school, but I look back, I've already been out of school for a while, so who knows what's changed.
You're an old man now.
Well, let's talk about some recommendations to raise the grade. The first one that they've listed is increased funding at all levels of government. I think that's always going to be a priority for funding these things, is trying to get the money to build them. And so just like we talked about taxes and things of that nature, trying to find ways to.
Yeah. And how do you restructure your tax base? How do you we talked about the tax on fuel consumption. How do you restructure that to maybe incorporate some of the electric car use,
Yep. It's coming. I bet. Another thing they talk about is trying to prioritize maintenance and rehabilitation. So you're actually probably getting out there more and looking at the bridge and fixing things that need to be fixed sooner, not waiting too long to let things go. That should be a high priority. They've also listed raising taxes of those motor fuel taxes and other ways to really increase funding tied to that again. And also they state that they want to make sure that future mechanisms of funding are sufficient for the future. So I think I'm reading a lot of these, and maybe 3 or 4 of these out of the 5 are all tied to funding in some way. Right?
Yeah.
So, we have to find some long-term solutions in order to fund these programs. Otherwise, I think you're just going to keep having some problems.
Yeah, and it can be tough because, you don't want to, overtax your population, your of citizens. But at the same time, if you don't have adequate infrastructure, and bridges are definitely part of that, how much does that affect the local economy? If you can't get goods and services delivered to where people are, especially goods, if you're talking about, stocking grocery stores and, whatever else is traveling over the highway, that represents some big money, and it affects the economy. So it's kind of a balance, I think, the balanced approach that needs to happen. You want to overtax, but at the same time, you got to have sound infrastructure too. So
one of the things they stated in here is interesting. They said that you should consider looking into further studying a pilot program of mileage-based user fees. What do you think that is?
Well, that's kind of a use tax then, right? So on its face, that makes some sense. Those that use the road should pay for the use of the road, I guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that too much, but there may be some valid approaches that way. It just use tax those that drive on the road. They're the ones that are using it.
Yeah, I think they're looking at all kinds of solutions to try to improve the infrastructure. And this is just one slice of a whole pie. This is just bridges.
Yeah, there's 15 other report cards.
Yeah, in the future, we'll probably dive into some others just to look at their grades and keep the audience apprised of the issues that are out there if you haven't checked these out already. But I think it's also a good reminder, knowing where we are and maybe look at where we're headed. And hopefully, if we do this again, it might be fun to do in the future when they release a 2021 and kind of look back and see where we're at again.
Yep, so. For sure.
Cool, Mark. Anything else we want to talk about on this?
No, I think it was good. it's kind of cool to go to look at these things. And considering another thought that I had is all this stuff, bodes well for our profession, right?
Oh yeah.
We need more infrastructure. We need more engineers. We need more expertise. It's,
Yeah,
job
I mean,
security, right?
I think that's a huge plug for anybody that's in this field or looking to be in this field. The outlook looks good for civil engineers because
Absolutely.
the lifespan of everything we're building is continually going down, and they need engineers to redesign, to innovate, and to be creative. And, we just need more engineers. So, and one of the things at Civil Engineering Academy is we want to help you with your career as well. So hit me up with an email if you want more information, if you need help with a resume, a LinkedIn profile, shoot me an email, Isaac at Civil Engineering Academy. We can help you out, or visit our website, civilengineeringacademy.com, to check things out. So
cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks for joining, and we'll probably see you in another episode.
Right on. See ya.
All right. See ya.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with my brother Mark. That was a very fun episode to record with him. Like I said, civil engineering specifically, is a really good field to be in because we need help. The infrastructure report cards aren't great, and there's definitely going to be a demand for civil engineers now and into the future for a career for you. And so there's just a lot of a need out there for people. So anyway, I hope this helped you out. If you need more help with your career, feel free to email me, Isaac at Civil Engineering Academy, or check out our website, civilengineeringacademy.com. We can do a LinkedIn profile review, check out your resume, help you with a cover letter, anything that you're struggling with, because we want to see you succeed and get the job of your dreams and the career of your choice. So anyway, hope you're doing well, and thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.